All right, so welcome everyone. This is Scholars on Screen, new concept that we have started because there was some interest in kind of some more early career content around the idea of getting your public persona um, figured out, since that's a bigger and bigger thing for academics too. And this workshop, we just threw it together. This is the second iteration, but still very early. So let's see how it goes. We're eager for your feedback and to see how, where this goes, because we can build on it over time, and involve more expert speakers in the future too. I'm kind of hoping to record this version that we're doing today, and then to start a series where every few weeks or so, every month maybe, we bring in a more expert person that can speak to like media engagements or specifically video editing in more detail, or journalism, and how to, I guess, go about like writing pieces for a larger audience, these kind of things. So if you enjoyed today, know that there's more to come, I'm hoping, and feel free to give your input on what would be fun. But with that said, just a quick overview here. You just met me, and also on the call here is Manuel Valencia. So both of us are part of the YSI management team at the Institute for New Economic Thinking, or INET. And we both work remotely. INET has an office in New York City, but a few of us are there a lot. Most of us work remotely these days, and we administer the Young Scholars Initiative from our laptops. And we just did, little intros here on the Zoom, so you don't have to worry about the chat too much. But if you want to share, for example, what you're currently doing, like Joao just mentioned, he's facing his midway PhD defense. So maybe the others also want to share, what you're up to. Are you in a master's program? Are you on the job market? Are you about to finish your PhD, thinking of starting one? Whatever your context is, that might be nice to know. Um, but the idea is that this workshop should be helpful regardless of the stage. I think the nice thing about social media is that you really don't have to be a Nobel laureate to be able to contribute through that avenue. So you can step in at any time. And the goals for this 2 hours really are for us to kind of cover the basics on how to, I guess, first of all, why to even do this at all. So we talk a little bit about the benefits of trying this out, and experimenting a bit with social media as an academic, because it's not so obvious, right? It's probably not something that your advisor is pushing on you, and it can feel a little cringy. But there are, legitimate reasons to consider. So we'll talk a bit about the point of it, and then how to script, set up, shoot, and deliver your pieces, um, in a very simple way. So no need to go buy a ring light or anything. If you want to, you can get crazy, but the idea is that you can start super simple and experiment without buying anything, or finding any studios or anything. So those are the goals. We're gonna have part one, and then a break, and then part two. The break is intended to give you a chance to actually experiment a bit with writing an example script. So you'll have 30 minutes. Manuel and I will be here if you want to talk about it, go back and forth, share anything, or share whatever hurdle you're running into. Um, the hope is that you can come up with a draft and then come back for part two, where we talk about how you would actually go about shooting it, editing it, and getting it ready to share. And if you're up for it, by the time our call is done, you could go and experiment shooting the video and sharing it with Manuel and me via Discord. We just made a little channel specifically for this purpose. So you could share it with us, and then we can cheer you on, give you some constructive feedback to the best of our abilities, and share your content on the YSI channels as well if it's something you would like, because that's something we're rolling out now that we're gonna have a more dedicated effort to share what you guys are working on, what you guys are, um, your points of view as you perceive the world, the news, things going on, your research, any interesting data that you find, whatever you're interested in sharing, we can actually boost your video through the YSI channels. So just keep that in mind, that if you're into it, we can support you that way. Now, the disclaimer at the bottom is that I am not an expert in this. I just seem to be in the best position to deliver this workshop for the moment. I don't have a following online, but I do kind of keep track of digital communication trends and best practices, and I do worry about the YSI social media channels. So I set those up and I delivered some. I mean, I created some systems for them, and I also take care of the websites and some of these other, I guess, like digital communication strategies. So that means I am kind of keeping tabs on different tools, different trends, different things going on in that realm. So I figured I can share a couple things that might be helpful to people who are not normally so like tuned into that and more tuned into their research. So that's just that. And I hope this is helpful. Let me just check the chat. I see you guys. Just defended PhD. Congratulations. Super recent PhD graduate. That's awesome. And Eddie, also final year PhD. Okay, amazing. So I'm sure you'll have plenty of things that you could share with the world. Alrighty, let's get into this. So why video? Why put yourself through the cringe of posting a video to Instagram or to Twitter or to TikTok or whatever it is? There are several reasons it can actually work in your favor really well. The first is that it's a great way to practice explaining your work clearly, right? This is something that almost all academics struggle with because you get caught in the nitty gritty, in the nuance, and in the technicalities of your work. And you almost forget how to translate it back to regular people language, and be able to communicate the relevance of it to somebody who hasn't studied the exact methods of analysis that you have. So in order to create, a 60-second video that communicates one point that you're trying to get across, it kind of forces you to practice this skill. And you'll notice that it's harder than you think. But when you actually do it, it immediately pays off at the next coffee break, right? It immediately pays off at your next family gathering. And you really cannot predict what'll happen when you are able to articulate clearly what it is that you do, and people understand how your work is relevant to the world, to them, to the current events that they see in the news. So it can be very powerful. Related is bullet number 2, is that you kind of, in that process, you kind of reconnect with the essence of your research, because when you zoom out a little bit, it's kind of like a zooming out or a zooming in, right? At the core of your research are the real issues that you're trying to tackle, the big, difficult questions that you're trying to chip away at. And I think Manuel also made this point to me when two of us were experimenting with this a little bit, and he said, yeah, it kind of brings you back to the emotional reasons why you're doing your research in the first place. So that can be useful just for you to kind of remember what it was all about, because in the process of trying to finish up your PhD, it can almost feel like you're just grinding, but that essence is always there, and if you can reconnect to it, it can give you a lot of strength. Okay, number 3 is perhaps obvious. It prepares you to speak. It prepares you to speak in front of people, in front of a classroom, in front of a lecture hall, and to speak in a way that your message lands, right? It's not that obvious that if you deliver a 1-hour lecture, that your audience actually walks away with something that they can tell somebody else, right? That's ideally what you want, so that you tell somebody something and they understand it so well that when they go home and their partner asks, hey, what did you just do? They can communicate what they learned from you in a few simple sentences. And this is actually not that easy to do. It's also not something that your institution is likely to educate you on. You know, some people are lucky, they have some really, really good teachers in their life who you know, use storytelling and metaphors and simple language, and the order in which they explain concepts, they're very careful with that. And they can kind of rub off on you if you're lucky like that. But a lot of us don't get that kind of example. And so it's useful to kind of put yourself through the effort to get your concepts out in a way that they can be digested by somebody else. Number four, you know, comes out of all of these earlier ones, is that in order for people to invite you to speak on a panel, in order for them to invite you to a conference, in order for them to figure that you could be a good collaboration partner for a YSI project, they need to know that you're there, and they need to know what you're interested in and what you're up to, right? So it just really, really helps to make it easy for people to understand what you're doing, how you're going about it, and what else you would like to do. So if you have an online presence that communicates this clearly, there are just going to be more inboxes. I mean, more messages in your inbox, more people coming up with ideas that may be fun for you to explore, including in YSI. So that's also why we are pushing this a little bit, or trying to see how we can help. Is that obviously the in-person networking is super, super useful, but we can do more to make it easier for each other to understand what we're up to in the virtual space. So, and the last bullet, I guess, is a more higher level bullet, is that ultimately you're you know, you're trying to do meaningful work here. In some way, you're trying to change the world, you're trying to shift the paradigm, you're trying to see society move. And in order for society to move in the direction that you think is appropriate, you need to have some reach. So if you, and this is not going to happen overnight, but if you do decide that this is worth kind of taking seriously, that your social media or your online presence is worth taking seriously, you can really grow your following and your impact to a level that is probably hard to I guess envision if you're just starting out, because it's like anything, right? In the beginning, there's almost no traction, and it's just like this, and then at some point you hit exponential growth, because that's the way these things get shared. Is that the more people follow you, the more people follow you. So, just a couple of examples of other economists that have taken this really far are this guy Gary's Economics. I'm actually missing an S here in this slide. And a woman, Kyla Scan. I keep forgetting her last name. It's Scan and then something else, but her handle is just Kyla Scan. So we can just pull them up for illustration's sake. Kyla Scan is a woman in the US, and she's kind of young, I believe. I don't even think she has a PhD, but she's doing a really effective job communicating economics concepts to her generation. So she has a ton of these simple talking videos where she'll respond to current events and say, so this just happened. So Trump just dropped a new tariff. Here's what's going on, or here's what it means, or here's what's, you know, the likely next consequence is going to be. And then she has stuff about finance and how to understand stock market trends and such, or things like Klarna, which, you know, pay overtime schemes and how those are affecting people. So she has a very simple setup. As you can see, there's no studio. I guess she makes sure there's some decent light on her face, but it's very scrappy, you know, just throw some words into the thumbnail. But very low budgets production and very effective following. She now has 300,000 Instagram followers. She has representation. She's got a podcast and a book. Obviously, this takes her, you know, a lot of time. She's practically a full-time influencer, I imagine. So it's not it's not like that's gonna happen to you if you start tweeting tomorrow, but just an idea that there is a space for this, even if your knowledge is not, you know, about beauty products or whatever. There's a real space. This other guy, it's called Gary's Economics, Gary Stevenson. So he has even more followers. He's from London. Used to, like, grew up sort of lower class, and went to the London School of Economics and went into finance. And then as a short-term interest rate trader, or short-term trader, he you know, used his economic analysis to really go deep into what's going on in the UK and in the rest of the Western world, specifically when it comes to wealth inequality. And he was so shocked at seeing that, and kind of used it into his analysis, and understood that he, you know, he was perceiving things correctly because his bets were paying off. That at some point he left the trading world, and he became, I guess now, an internet personality, calling attention to the issue of wealth inequality and sharing with a lot of people where he thinks it's going to take the economy of the UK, and what we need to do about it. So he's more of an activist figure, rather than an explainer. So that just presents a different avenue for this. And he's really, really, you know, a powerful speaker. So again, somebody who's way down the line, but just an interesting piece of inspiration. Maybe if you know anybody else that you have come across that is similar to either one of these two, or does something different in this direction, share it in the chat, because it is interesting to actually kind of gather a list of these figures to see if they can inspire us. And I was also thinking we could ask this woman Kyla, for example, that we looked at a second ago, to join one of our next calls, because she you know, might be willing to speak for 45 minutes about her strategies. And I haven't asked her yet, but I would like to. So that's an idea. Alrighty, back to my slides. Now, if you go ahead and give this all a try, just a couple of notes, because obviously there's a few things to watch out for. Number one, very obvious, but it's worth reiterating. Videos live online, and once you put them out there, even though you can take your own videos down, right? It's a good idea to just check with yourself that you're comfortable with this living online, and with future employers potentially seeing it. Now, you know, obviously you don't really want to work for a future employer that's going to heavily disagree with your statements, but it's just something to keep in mind. And one way I personally, like, my personal take on this is that it can be more useful to share perspectives that are positive, or that present a positive alternative to that which you're critical of, or that, you know, direct people's attention in a positive direction, rather than tearing something down or showing what's really broken. Even though tearing something down can go viral a lot quicker, you know, that's the more flammable content that, you know, could come to bite you in the ass in some way or another. So just a small note to be mindful of that. But obviously it's a subjective one, and everybody's, you know, take on that is a little bit different. Then 3 other points to just be ready for. Number one, people are going to disagree with you. That's fine, right? Actually, it's great. In YSI, we always embrace different perspectives and the learnings that can come out of that, the discussions that can come out of that. So that can actually be really awesome. If you get responses to your content from other people that are educated, that are interested, and that ultimately, you know, are operating in the direction of trying to build knowledge and discover truth, amazing. That's what you want. And so embrace that. Embrace whatever criticism they come with. You can learn from it. Number 2, however, if people are just being rude, and that's likely to happen at some point or another if you're going to consistently post, that's something you want to build some emotional distance around. I am hearing that it's a little bit less common now to just straight up be like an anonymous troll and really, really attack people. It seems like more and more people have gotten it out of their system a little bit, but still happens. So whenever you do get a comment that isn't thumbs up, just separate it in your head. Is this a constructive, educated, interested person that's trying to debate you? Or is this somebody rude who's just letting go of their anger at your expense? And if it's the second one, let it float away in your brain. The third is maybe actually the most likely to happen, is that if you were just starting out, you're not likely to have a lot of engagement. And that can feel a little bit, like a bummer. Um, but it really doesn't mean that your content is bad. In some way, obviously, when you're just starting out, your content isn't going to be as effective as it would be once you've had some practice. So I'm sure that you can improve, but you don't want to let yourself completely get discouraged, because until you post consistently, people don't expect your content, right? They're not on the lookout for it. They don't know your name. It's just not in their system, and it's not on their feed. So give it some time, and embrace the low engagement in the beginning, because it gives you the chance to get good before you get attention, right? Actually, you want this. You want a little bit of privacy while you're figuring it out. And then by the time somebody puts you on a feed where you're getting a lot more eyeballs, you'll actually be able to use those eyeballs effectively. Okie dokie. Next, we've got how to now actually structure your message. So this is the real meat of the matter, and it's obviously also the most difficult, because there are a million ways you can structure a message, and there are a million messages that you can send. But there's a few rules of thumb that can help you get going. Probably most important is to focus your message into a small point rather than everything right? Especially if you're thinking of making it a habit to start posting and building an online persona. Um, you want to go one point at a time, because you don't, why would you try to say it all at once and then run out of things to say? Um, Try to say one thing at a time and say it well. Say what you have to say, and then back it up with reasons, or back it up with a story, or back it up with examples. Um, Better to make 1 point with 7 examples than 7 points with 7 examples, because it just, again, like, you have to be empathetic of the brain of the person on the other side. They just cannot take it all in at once. And you want them to be able to walk away and repeat back to another person what they learned. Number two is kind of a mental framework, right? It's social media can feel like it's all about getting people to see you, even if you're not going into it with an egotistical, agenda. It just kind of can happen that while you're working on it, that becomes the focus of your effort. It becomes that you're thinking, oh, everybody's gonna, see this, and what are they gonna think? And it can really help to try to instead focus your attention on one person that is in your audience, and how you can help them somehow. So probably this girl Kyla that we just looked at, she's probably thinking of her one friend who's never taken an economics class, who doesn't understand what's going on when the stock market goes up and down, who doesn't know what to make of Trump's crazy policies. And she's just thinking, how do I help this person understand one thing at a time what's working? I mean, what's going on? That's a lot, more effective than her thinking, how am I going to come across as a smart, cool econ explainer? Because that stuff just gets in your own way. All right. Then we have some suggested frames, right? We already talked about this a little bit, in the sense that this guy, Gary, whose example we looked at, is more of an activist. Kyla's more of an explainer. But there's more. You can also, if are in the middle of your PhD or about to wrap it up, you have a lot of stuff in front of you. You have a lot of data and findings and trends that you're probably deep into, and so they may seem like obvious to you. You may have started to think that everybody knows these things, but they are going to be new to other people, right? So you can take out small findings, small data points that have consequences for other things in the world and bring them to an audience. Similarly, you can respond to a current event. So even if your PhD is not on something that is currently happening in the news, chances are that something in the news, that you can comment on it with the expertise that you've built from your PhD. So don't underestimate your own ability to shed light on a topic, especially for somebody who doesn't have your level of expertise, right? Okay, then the approach of actually getting a script together. There is two approaches, and I don't really know which one is better. I actually had a back and forth with the video director from iNet. His name is Magical Vicky, and he does the iNet YouTube channel, which has a decent following. I'm sure you guys have seen some of iNet's videos, and he's all about not scripting. He says if you're an amateur video person, like you're an academic, you're not you don't go on the news every day, so you're kind of an amateur, you don't do this all the time. It's best to just speak your point and then do a little bit of editing, but don't plan out every word you're going to say. He says that just comes across more natural. I came in with a different perspective, thinking if you want to make a video that is like 60 to 90 seconds long and it's going to be on TikTok or on Instagram or wherever somebody's just scrolling really fast, they barely are paying attention. You better know what words you're going to use, because especially the first 10 words you use are going to decide whether somebody is going to watch it at all. And if you only have a minute or so, then it really matters which words you use, whether or not your point gets across. So I was telling people, script it out, write every single word out, say it a few times, improve your scripts to the point that it feels like it's something you would actually naturally say in conversation, because that's the challenge with scripting, is that it can, if you start writing it, it becomes like a written tone when you really want it to be like a speaking tone. So all that's to say, there are pros and cons to both approaches, and it might make sense for you to play with both of them and see what works for you. And depending on the length of the video, I guess it also matters, right? I think if you are doing short form content, then like I said, the word choices really matter. If you're doing a more like a 10-minute video where you're really explaining something, it probably makes more sense to just allow yourself to speak as it comes naturally and cover a few bullets. And you can do both, right? Like people who are professional content creators, they typically use the short form stuff to gather an audience, and that's why it looks a little bit like loud, and sometimes it even looks even like clickbaity, or there's like 10 reasons to do yada yada. Those are designed to get new followers, but then once people have watched that short clip, they've decided this person has something to say. Now they're willing to watch a 10-minute clip, and in the 10-minute clip you don't have to be so catchy and obnoxious, if you will. So that's that. You can play with both. If you're scripting, try to keep it to 130 words. That's roughly a minute or so. It's a nice kind of place to start when it comes to spoken videos. Last point, though, no matter what approach you use, it is really helpful to try to make your language as simple as possible. Again, this is probably not going to come naturally because you're used to do your academic work in academic language that is often like peer review journal language, technical language, big words, but it just doesn't translate very well on social media. So the more you can write a script and then try to write the same script as if you're explaining it to your 10-year-old cousin, the better. And there's even tools for this. You can use ChatGPT, you can use something called the Hemingway app, because Hemingway was an author who wrote in really simple language. There's something like the Hemingway app where you upload your writing and it edits it for you to try to make it look or to try to make it sound a lot more digestible. So no matter what script process you use, just try to use the simplest language possible. Okay, couple more things on structuring your message is the opening and the closing. So when it comes to writing your script, it can be helpful to kind of start with the actual thing you want to say, like the meat, the real point you're trying to get across. Start with that on paper. But then think about the opening and think about the closing. Kind of just like when you're writing an essay, you first write the essay. Many teachers will recommend that you write the introduction after that and the conclusion after that. So the openings are specifically important for social media because, like we just said, they determine whether or not somebody gets to the meat at all. And the other day, somebody gave me this statistic that like the average person now scrolls through 100 meters worth of stuff on a regular day. So they're scrolling really fast. Okay, you're trying to get them to pause a little bit, and it helps to have a hook. So specifically, if you have a video, you want to not have any dead air at the beginning of the video. You want to just get right to the words, and you want those words to have a hook. So something that kind of captures the attention and indicates that there's something interesting about to be said. Here's one thing that few people understand about XYZ. Let's talk about ABC. So this happened. Here's what it means, right? It brings you right, it wakes you up. That's the idea. Then you go into your point. You make your points, you make it again, you make it some more clearly. You're only making 1 point, and then you close it. Maybe you have a 1 sentence summary of what you just said, and you invite the viewers, the audience, to join in on the conversation in some way. Because that's another thing to keep in mind, that ultimately this technology, it's just a virtual version of a normal conversation, right? It starts to feel really like artificial, but ultimately that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to say something, and then ideally you get something back, and the conversation keeps going with your next post. So if you close with a clear invitation for the audience to respond, that'll be beneficial. They'll feel like they're actually in conversation with you. You can ask them what they think and put it in the comments. You can encourage them to follow along for more. You can ask them something specific. Oftentimes it's more useful if you ask a very specific pointed question, like does your country have tariffs imposed on it right now? That's a bit of a silly example, but just like a very clear question where they don't have to write a paragraph, and they don't have to think about it super hard, because if you keep it easy and light for them, they're much more likely to actually do it, and then the train gets moving. So that's for closings. And yeah, I think those are, the main things we wanted to cover for part one. But we should pause for some questions at this point, and then after that, we'll move into our 30-minute break where you can actually try to put some of this in practice and experiment a bit with script writing yourself. So let's just consider the floor to be open if you have any thoughts. Maybe your own experience trying this already is also very welcome. Chances are it's not like you've never posted to social media before, right? So you've had maybe some experience, some things you can share from that as well. But your questions are also very welcome. Manuel, maybe you want to start us off by sharing a little bit about your own script drafting experience from the recent weeks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, actually, I have been trying to make another one on
Uh-huh.
part two. Okay, hi all. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Manuel. As Hesky said, I'm actually contributing to the efforts of management in YSI. And I had a challenge uh, to put in 1 minute what I felt and thought that I knew a lot, which it was the tariff imposition, especially back then. It was only to Mexico and Canada by Trump. So I mean, it's in itself is a huge topic with lots of details and things to discuss. But especially for me, I was raised and born in a state called Sonora, which is in the border with the United States. So it was for me that topic was not only like intellectually interesting or challenging, but it was also something that I could relate to because living very close to the border made me had a lot of contact. So these tariff things, it would impact not only my family but also my family, my dad's business, and many other things. So the first challenge to actually come up with 60 seconds of the idea, it was to summarize in what Hesketh said, 1 point. It's better to say to explain one thing very clearly with many examples rather than putting like a lot of thoughts that I had. So that took me some time. I actually like when I was scripting, I was I was trying to focus my main message, right? And when you have the list at hand, that I think Heskey will share the list with the videos, uh, you will see that I focus mainly on that. My main message was the tariff was bad not only for countries where the tariff were being imposed, but also for the U.S. It would have negative consequences. So that was my message. The second thing is like, okay, in my mind, I can just start talking about this and I will find something that, of course, because I'm saying it for me is interesting. But how can I convince somebody else that what I'm going to say is actually interesting? And I started thinking on the hook. And yeah, the hook was something also challenging because I had to check like a lot of media, what was being said, and especially I focused on what was not being said. And then I focused like, for instance, you have this uh, tariff imposition, but also you have a huge migration attention from the US. Okay, is there a relationship? Yes. Was that being discussed? I think it was not very discussed. And my main point on the hook, it was like, do you know that tariffs would actually create more migration pressure, something like that. And then I developed like try to develop the message on a third basis, like more like on going deeper. I try to use my own research, actually also to share it to be convenient for me myself as like having my research path. And I think that's something that I really wanted to do, like because I actually researched about it. I don't only have like this emotional attachments to this topic, but also I have something to say that it's a little bit more elaborated, if you would say. So that was another point that I tried to implement in this video. And overall, I would say what I the summarizing my experience in this, I think it was a very good, and I'm still doing it, exercise to put in short your ideas and try to bring up a message. I have had an experience on media before, um, and I learned that it's better to say just one thing. And after the experience of actually defending your ideas, I think you actually kind of make the idea make it becomes a little bit more solid. I don't know if you understand. Like that was one of the consequences of this. So I could relay my point with other points that I could read after that. I could actually have like I haven't shared this video, we haven't shared the video, but uh, um, also you can receive some feedback from your ideas and points of view that you haven't taken into account. So that's also very good. And as Hesky said, there's immediately isn't a space of debate, discussion, the social media. So posting your thoughts on this will create debate and discussion. Hopefully, it's respectful because that doesn't happen every time. So I could actually just uh, conclude these my experience just by saying that I think making videos has like a lot of personal career benefits and also some um, clarifying process, like clarifying characteristics on sharing your ideas with social media. So I could relate actually everything that Heske said on my own experience. I would tell you guys and recommend you guys to actually do it. And yeah, it's pretty fun. That's it on my side.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's just like writing, right? Like you start with an idea just in your head, but once it's on the page, you have more grip on it. But once you then also figure out how to say it in words to somebody's face or to a lens, you have even more grip on it. And then it's like yours. I think
Exactly.
that's really nice.
Yeah,
And
and
that's probably
also
also yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and also I think I mentioned last time that I saw some tweets about a journal editor that Twitter, for instance, made 10 times more like people visiting their journal than without posting on Twitter, which means the power of social media of amplifying your message. Which I think that, for instance, if I do like if I write a paper, I would immediately think on how to make that thread on Twitter, explaining what are the main points on my paper, on my report, and so on and so forth, in order to make my own writing more visible and attract much more public. So that I think also videos increase the public that you arrive with because you put the message very simple and in words. Maybe sometimes you are tired or you don't want to read, so listening to someone it's a way better method to actually learn from that.
Do we have any questions? If not, let's go to the break. Let's allow everyone to digest a bit and practice on their own. I will put myself on mute, but I will be here. I may just get a coffee refill. But if you want to bounce any ideas off of us for your script, you're welcome to ping us in the chat and we can help. And then we'll be back at 15 minutes past the hour for part 2, and then we'll talk a bit about how to actually set up your phone and your lighting and such to record, how to deliver in a way that is effective, and how to edit with free tools that you can get on your smartphone. So don't go too far away, and see you at 15 minutes past.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back. I'm going to bring my slides back up. So we just had a chance to practice some scripting, and now we're going to talk a little bit about how to actually set yourself up to shoot something in a very simple way. So no tricky text setup required. There's just a few things to look out for. First of all, you need to figure out where you're going to do this, right? So ideally the place is quiet, with good lighting and minimal distractions. Quiet is important. Actually, like the audio being reasonably clear is kind of more important than the visuals being pretty or clear. Because ultimately it's about what you're saying, right? And not how you look. But it does also help to have good lighting, specifically lighting that doesn't put too many random shadows on your face, right? Because if you have a lamp right to the right of your face, then the left part of your face is all dark. That's a bit distracting. So natural light is best. If you can sit with a window in front of you, that's ideal. If you don't have a window, you can have like two desk lamps, for example, in front of you so that you have light coming from both sides, or ceiling lamps. That's what I have right now. I'm in a co-working space and it has like ceiling stuff, and you can see my face is fairly evenly lit, so that would work. And then minimal distractions. So it's fine, your background is fine if it is just your home or whatever, but just having cats walking around or people, that kind of stuff is going to get in your way. So just try to be in a space where things are, a little bit even. Then the phone setup is actually quite important, or I guess at least I would say it makes a difference. It's very nice to be eye level, because ultimately, like we said earlier, it's about kind of simulating a conversation, and it's nicest when you can speak to people eye to eye. And I would recommend using the vertical mode, because that's seems to be what all the platforms are kind of optimized for now, right? You can do one vertical video and only make slight tweaks to post it on YouTube Shorts, on Instagram, on TikTok, on LinkedIn, and on Twitter, I believe. So I think um, you can go with the vertical format if you're not sure. And I would also use selfie mode. Some people say that the back camera is actually higher quality, so that you shouldn't use selfie mode. But I think it's helpful to see if your face is, in the frame. And you don't have to be in the exact middle. You kind of be off to the side, but you do want to be visible. And it is, for me, it seems to help to see that I'm there. So that's what I do. Um, then you want your script nearby. So whether you did bullets or you did a fully, scripted version, um, I would print it out, or I would open it up on an iPad or some other kind of easy to get to set up, so that you can go look at the script and go back to do another take without, running around the room or fussing around. Because you kind of want to get into a flow. Like you want to allow your brain to really sink into the task, and make it smooth. So when I was shooting a video, I had printed out my script and I stuck it on the window that I was in front of, and then I had my phone vertically propped up in the window sill, and then I would look at the piece of paper that had my script, and then I would look at the lens and I would do a take, and that worked pretty well for me. Okay, next one is super important. If you can speak into the lens, so I'll try right now to actually like look at the lens of my laptop while I'm making this point. If you can do that, it's really powerful, because you immediately have a different level of connection when somebody looks into the lens, and it immediately feels like they're actually speaking to you and you're having an actual conversation. But it's hard. It's hard to like keep your face relaxed, to not lose your train of thought because you're staring at this black situation. I can't even really like see the lens on my laptop, but I'm just looking in the direction. So, and I could never teach this whole workshop like this. I guess a professional could with the use of an auto cue maybe, or just by looking into a camera lens. But for this 1 minute thing, I would really, really try to just practice until you can get at least the majority of your time looking at it. It just changes the whole situation. Then speaking clearly is another one. I actually found this surprisingly hard when I tried a couple times. I noticed how much I mumble, and how many random filler words I put in there. So that actually required several attempts for me to understand that I needed to pronounce the words fully. And we all have accents too, right? So that also adds to the challenge. And accents are totally fine, but you want to do your best, try your best to pronounce every word, and pronounce, the full sentence in its melodic, in the rhythm that feels most clear. So that don't be surprised if it takes practice. And lastly, use gestures if it feels natural enough. It can help a lot if you have your head in the frame, but also your shoulders and to some extent a hand or two hands. Because if you can make a couple of points and just illustrate them with some gestures, so long as you're not feeling too rehearsed, if you can get yourself to kind of embrace it, then it can really add to the kind of natural feel of your delivery. Lastly, obviously, practice, practice, practice. It really, I think that's what most people say who are legitimate professionals at this, is that the only way to get good at it is just to do it a million times. So not to expect it to be smooth in the beginning, to understand that it's going to feel stiff, and to work through that a little bit, and then it gets better and better. So those are setup and delivery tips. Then we have a little bit about editing. So obviously, once you've done your takes, chances are you're gonna have like 8 or 10 takes in your phone. As you're shooting, you can also shoot the first part of your paragraph and then the second part of your paragraph. You can go bit by bit if you don't want to do the whole thing. This is a little bit like scripting. Like you can try to do it all in one take, or you can go kind of shorter chunks, if that's easier to remember and look at the lens that way. So again, those are kind of two different approaches. But either way, you're going to end up with a few, with a camera roll with a few different versions on it, and you're going to want to go through those and then assess what you want to work with. And I think it's helpful to leave a little bit of time between actually shooting the video and looking back at the content, at the footage that you got, because ideally you can look at yourself with a little bit of distance, a little bit of a fresh perspective, and assess, am I coming across clearly? Is this one better than that one? Am I feeling more natural here than there? It helps to kind of like put a little time between doing it and looking at it to get that clear perspective. And then you can just favorite the best clips that you found and put them in a folder that says to be edited or something. That's what I have on my phone. And then obviously most smartphones have their own video editing functionality, but it's not that easy to use. At least I think most people that do this more often, they have a dedicated app for it outside of their phone's standard. And the one that I came across that seems to be quite easy to use and free is called VN App. So this is an app you can import your selected clips. So you open VN App, then you go to your folder that said edited or to be edited. You import all your stuff, and then you go to work to put the pieces together. If you did it all in one take, you're importing your one best take, and then you might just be cutting out little sections that were awkward or redundant, or pauses that were very long, or ums and ahs that aren't helping. And you'll be able to use this little cutting tool to sort of say, slice the footage here, and then delete what's in between. And the user interface is quite easy. So if you've never done any video editing before, you can definitely learn VN App, in a day. It's really not too intimidating. And I would suggest try to keep it to 60 seconds. I think you can upload up to 90 seconds, so a minute and a half, to Instagram Reels. So if you're going over 60, maybe just stay under 90 so that you have that option for posting. But yeah, that's just a thought. Then the other thing to do, especially for all of us, non-native English speakers, super, super helpful to have captions. It's very easy to do, even though it feels it looks like complicated maybe, but the app basically does it for you. You can do it in an app called Captions app that you can get on your smartphone. You can also do it in other apps. There's one called CapCut, which is both editing and captions, and you can get that on your laptop. But I think if you're just doing phone stuff, Captions app is the best one. And it you basically click auto generate captions and it'll just do the subtitles for your whole video. And then you can go in and tweak the words because sometimes it's going to think that you said one thing and get it wrong. And especially if you're talking about technical things, which ideally you're not doing very much. But if you are saying something like stock flow consistent or whatever, Captions app is not going to know what you're talking about. So it's going to come up with something different and you can edit it to make sure that it's correct. So that's the process. Then once you've done this trimming and cutting and adding the captions, you would export it from Captions app. Try to export it in 1080p, that's the resolution. That's high enough, it doesn't need to be 4K. The file gets a bit heavy that way. But ideally it's 1080p so that it looks reasonably crisp. And then if you export it, it goes back to your camera roll. So you can have another folder there that says ready to post. So that's the little workflow. Creating footage, selecting your best takes, editing them, adding captions, exporting for post. And you can do all that on your phone for $0. So that's nice. Alrighty. Then when it comes to sharing it, obviously, you know, you can share it anywhere you want. The world is your oyster. Maybe there's a platform that you're already active on, that you already have some following on, that you want to kind of go deeper into. Each platform, people always say, kind of has their own personality, and so it's nice to kind of try a couple and see where you feel like you're most at home. And then if you are going to be serious about it, kind of like commit to that one and try to understand what informs, you know, the amount of engagement certain things gets, and you can use that to your advantage. I think in our world of academia and research, X is actually pretty good. At least I've seen with YSI that Facebook is dead, right? Maybe that's just also a generational thing. But we used to have for YSI Facebook, Twitter or X, Instagram. We have YouTube, but we don't do YouTube Shorts. And we only added LinkedIn 3 or 4 years ago or something. So Facebook was our first place and it was the biggest, but it's now dead. And I've seen a lot of growth instead on Twitter and on LinkedIn. So I would think that for you guys, that also might feel like a natural place, but Instagram is really good for video. So and like we said, those people, Kyla, Gary, and Otto earlier in the chat posted Grace Blakely. I think they've really leaned into that video angle, and so their Instagram is really, really strong. So I think it's worth trying out, you know, a few. If you're willing to set up your own accounts and see where that goes. But if you're like, hey, this is too much too soon. You can also, if you just want to kind of practice, you can send us your video and we'll post it on YSI's channels. So we'll feature you, whether, you know, you posted it to your own account or not. You can post it to your own account and then we can share it, or you can not post it to your own account and we can post it to ours for you. That can be a nice way to start without having to like commit to anything long run. And you can kind of dip your toe in. So if you want to try that later this weekend, you can simply send your video in via the email thread that we had about this workshop, or via the Discord chat. I'll put that in the chat in a second, Discord thread. We're trying to kind of create a place on Discord where people who are kind of experimenting with this and trying to leverage social media, where we can support each other, and where YSI can amplify you. Because, you know, YSI doesn't have 1 million followers, but it it probably has more than you, and so it's a good place to start. Um, what else? Um, yeah, I think those are the most important things. I was gonna ask Manuel to comment a bit more, maybe on the experience of shooting, because I think while I was going sort of sentence by sentence, Manuel ended up doing a full take. So maybe that's also worth elaborating on a little bit how that felt for you, and how you did
Yeah,
your editing or no editing.
yeah. I actually recorded. I have yesterday. I was checking on the videos that I recorded. I recorded a total of 54 videos. Like trying and going forward. So definitely the first shot will not be the definite. Like, I mean, it can happen. You may be natural, and I know some of you are very natural, but um, yeah, I tried to memorize the script, but I have a rat's memory, so I forget everything, and I get kind of nervous, like not knowing, like, oh, was that a word? I had to make a pause, like, so for me, total script was not useful. Then, since that was not working, I tried to use like a teleprompter in the phone. Maybe it's for you guys. I felt like giving the news, like the person that in the night gives the news and reads the teleprompter. So at the beginning, it was quite unnatural, but then I found one where I felt like really comfortable with. Um, and it was for free. I didn't have to pay anything. I just put my text there, and the text was showing like in the screen while I was recording. And you can adjust the tempo, and that's really helpful as well. But at the end, I start also improvising some of the parts where I felt that I could say it differently. Actually, you can see that there are two videos on the list that Hesky showed, um, and on one of them, I think it's third, like the number one is a little less natural. The second one, I think I adjusted a bit more, but that was also a strategy. It might work for some of you, but yeah, I would say that I'm like 60% uh like prepared script, 40% improvising. And yeah, that was my experience on actually recording. Um for me, challenging was to actually remember everything. So that's why I try to use this teleprompter, which actually made it much simpler. But for others, I know that it could see so unnatural. And I think Heskey commented something on the teleprompter. There's some people that it's evidently that you're reading, right? And that's why that's also a possibility. So I would just say just try it. If you have a very bad memory as me, you just try it. But at the end, you will end up recording many, many videos. And yeah, and you will have a person, in this case was my partner, laughing about me because I was forgetting like everything like after the third sentence. So yeah, that was also fun, to be honest. That was very fun.
Yeah, it's quite challenging. I was also surprised at how hard it is to actually remember. But if you do a lot of takes, at some point, like the point sort of sinks into your system. I think it's best when you're kind of feeling into the message that you're sharing as you're speaking it, so that you're not like thinking so hard. You're just gonna keep this image in your head. Um, but it's a learning curve, and I think there's this concept also in um animation, right? Like it's called the uncanny valley, where maybe I'm creating a weird analogy here. Now I also don't know if I can explain it properly or if I even know it properly. But basically, there's like a gap where you're either yeah, I know. Never mind. I need to just cancel this point because I don't have any have it fully enough. Let me Let me just turn the floor back to you to save myself. Do you have any experience already like trying this, or would it be the first time to speak to a camera for the three of you?
Can I start?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So I was having the information in the background while doing some slides, and I'm just trying to navigate the whole stuff that is happening in my head before the session tomorrow. But really, what struck me when I try to record a video is how you go back to the fundamentals of explaining what your research is in a way that you're really speaking with someone. You don't know the public who's going to watch that, right? In the COP event and in the G20 event, we asked people to speak about their research for like 1.5 minutes, and we were evaluating them. Oh yeah, that was not very clear. They were not making eye contact. But when you're the one doing the video, it's just like, wait, what? So
Yeah.
it really is like the tables turning moment in which you're realizing that it is hard, of course, but it really is part of this new wage of precarious academic engagements with social media. I would say that we all have to sell ourselves because this is the part of the new reality, but we also have to compete for resources. We have to compete for funding. And I just want to add that yesterday I had a teaching session at UCL, like how to convince a panel in 2 minutes that your research should get funded. And I really think that there's a lot that I've learned in this session that I've also heard in this session here. So the idea of a video is you're pitching yourself to someone that you don't know who it is. It's even more difficult because you have to
Yeah.
explain, you have to make sure that you're being very transparent and very open about what research is in only 2 minutes without knowing what these people know. So I think that's definitely a challenge, but having workshops like this actually helps us. But a lot of the work, as Manuel said, has basically just open up the phone and recording, trying it many times. And then we realize that when you see those videos in the application from YSI, it's like, okay, these people have put effort. And you can clearly tell who has put effort on it. Because it's not on the first time that you're going to get it. But maybe on the second, third time, after your partner is laughing at you, you'll be able to actually have a final video and to tell a story of what you're actually doing. And the message can be quite powerful. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
Thanks. Yeah. It's very nice that you draw this comparison to the panel of essentially defending the reason for your work, because it does relate a lot. And in order to kind of, I guess, address the difficulty of not knowing who you're speaking to through social media, you can choose to speak to a certain kind of person as a strategy, right? Like, I think this Kyla girl is like, okay, I'm choosing to speak to people that don't know economics, that want to know what's going on in the world, that are feeling anxious about it, and that are my age, and maybe they're women or something. I don't know. She might have narrowed it down quite substantially. This guy Gary might be thinking, okay, I'm speaking to like white lower class people that aren't having any luck on the job market, that are worried that they can't provide for their families, and I'm trying to tell them that it's not their fault. Like, he might have that angle, but that doesn't mean that it's not interesting for us to also see it, or that it's not that somebody else won't also resonate with it, or won't also like draw something from it. But it's just to say that I think if it becomes kind of paralyzing that you don't know who you're speaking to, it can you can come up with something. Maybe you're speaking to other academics and you're saying like, hey, if we're gonna tackle the socio-ecological effects of the green transition properly, we need to be taking into account these and these things that are currently going overlooked. Like, in that case, I guess you can make a case for your research to other academics, and still you'd want to try to avoid the jargon, but you can kind of like decide, I guess, like, who are you trying to speak to the most. And there are different audiences, like right now, the other day we were talking with one of our senior people at INET, and he was saying like, you guys should consider the business community as an audience as well, because there are a lot of people that are that are professionals, that are operating businesses, running businesses, thinking of starting one, that are trying to understand the economic landscape of the world from a genuine place of wanting to do something productive and wanting to understand the different flows of what is happening. And as an economist, you have so much insight and so much knowledge that you're probably not even aware is useful to somebody like that. So yeah, I think just to the point of an audience, I think it's useful to have like a working audience, like a temporary idea of who your audience might be, and then to keep an open mind that different people might be interested in your points. Yeah, Manuel.
Yeah, actually more now. Like I've been following some podcasts about business. And now more than ever, regarding the importance of the opinions of the economists, because this whole uncertainty situation is making business decision takers more hesitant to actually invest, to actually buy stuff and so on, and do their operations. So the POVs are more demanded than ever, I would say right now.
Yeah. Ignacio, do you want to add anything? Have you ever tried video content?
Yes, yeah, I have tried actually but not with my PhD focus, but it this think tank where I work in Chile, OPES, which is focused. We have a lot of some kind of we're trying to have a lot of activity in our social network, and we are trying to move to these videos and trying to do some more reels, not only because we are more famous for being like very boring in terms of explain everything very long, and now we are working with one person who works on social media, but still it's very difficult to actually understand who is listening and why, how can we keep the attention of someone that we are really don't know who is. Yeah, this is a bit challenging, and we have tried a bit, and yeah, I have faced a bit of these issues of memorize or not. I don't feel confident at all when I saw myself in a video. I feel like I don't want to watch this. Yeah, I mean, of course, it seems that this practice I haven't done like many times, but usually I don't like the output, honestly.
It's normal. Yeah. I think the weird part is that it's so easy, like practically to do it, right? You literally have to press one button and you can do it, and then you press two more buttons and it's online. So it seems as though it should be really simple. And then it feels really stupid when you realize actually it's not that simple. But the lesson is that whoever is doing it consistently has a system, has had practice, has iterated many, many, many times, has shot a whole lot of clips that they never put online because they weren't good enough yet, and they just kept trying and trying and trying, and you're not seeing any of that. So just keep that in mind. So whoever is online and looks like they're really good at this, they've spent the time, making their partner laugh and trying over and over. Arnaldo, I think you joined us for the second portion, but maybe we didn't see you for the first portion. So it's nice you're here. If you want to chime in at all, you're welcome to. Maybe you can comment on, where you're based and what made you join the call today.
Actually, Arnaldo already, like, one of the one of our YSI lists that we have for pilot version of videos. It's Arnaldo
Oh,
participates.
amazing. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't know that. That's great. So then we want to hear from you even more. Maybe you can share a bit of your experience if you're, able in a place where you can speak. I don't know if your mic is on, but it would be great to hear your experience.
I've just sent him a message just to check that he can speak.
Yeah, maybe he walked away, or he's in a loud
No, I
place.
think he might be having
No.
Hey.
some speakers problem because
Yeah, there he is.
Yeah, Arnaldo, we don't hear you yet. Maybe there's a mic issue. Don't worry. I see you're muting and unmuting. Okay. I'll talk a little bit more, but if you get your mic back, Arnaldo, feel free to just interrupt. Um, I see one more point from Manuel in the chat that I wanted to pick up on that says, I would say you only like your content once you receive feedback. I think that's a good one. That kind of brings us back to the idea that it is a conversation, you know, and you want kind of you want to know that you're not speaking to a void. So it's just helpful to get something back. And in the very beginning, you know, your friends can be that feedback too. So that's part of why we were thinking, let's try to set up a Discord channel to see if the people in the community that are interested in exploring this together, if they want to share their videos with each other before putting them online, that maybe lowers the barrier a little bit. And you know, we can just help each other and point out where things are going really well and give each other a little bit of encouragement and help spot things that are easy to fix to make things smoother and more effective. So I'm gonna also bring up that Discord chat on the screen and remind you that that exists. Not everybody's used to using Discord, so if it turns out that, you know, a different place is better, who knows, we might switch. But for now, this is here. YSI does video. And so I'm going to, after this workshop, use the email thread to remind you guys of this, give you the recording from today, give you the slides from today, and just keep you in the loop on this series as it proceeds. Because like I said, I'm hoping to get more expert people to come and share their thoughts with us. And try to have something once a month and then record it every time and start building a set of resources to guide people in this direction. Let's just turn back to Arnaldo one more time if you wanted to try the mic one last time. It doesn't seem to be working. Maybe we'll see you in the Discord. Any points from anybody else?
Oh, good. Just to thank you for the initiative. I hope to submit the video as soon as I have shaved, because last time I did a video without looking at how it's looking like, I have the whole my LinkedIn notifications on a video that I really don't like how I look. But yeah, I guess this is like when you're an artist, like a musician, you write like you record a song and then you can't hear it. I just don't like the sound of my voice when I'm hearing myself. Also, yeah, I think that really
Yeah.
hits on other structural issues of how academia works. But I feel that if we are better supported to at least be well with what we're going to say, that helps with the other parts. So thanks for organizing this.
Of course, thanks for coming. And apparently there's a scientific explanation also for why people don't like the sound of their voice, because when you're in your own head, the frequency, it vibrates at a like lower pitch than if you're not in your own head, because your skull is not vibrating with you. So the pitch is literally
Yeah.
different. So it sounds really unfamiliar. But it's kind of
And I
like
guess,
seeing yourself mirrored or something. Like, but
yeah,
it's all normal.
scholars are always in their own head. So I would say that that is definitely a good explanation of it.
That too, yeah. Yeah, that's another point Manuel made when we were talking about this a while ago. You said, Manuel, that it's putting videos online, trying to articulate your work. It's also very helpful when it comes to getting kind of a reality check on it, or like remembering to bring things back down to the world out there, the people out there, the real lives we're all living, the concrete, the tangible, the observable, and not just the, you know, ivory tower brain spin. And we're pretty good at that in YSI in general because we've all recognized that we want to be resonating with reality as opposed to anything else, right? But that doesn't mean we don't have to work on it. So I think that was a nice point Manuel made last time, that it helps to as a tool. But yeah, we can essentially wrap this up. I'm super grateful you all were here. I'm excited that you're, you know, willing to explore this with us, and I will keep you posted on any next steps. Thank you also, Manuel, for helping me put this together and for taking a lead on experimentation. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Alright.
Thank you all. Thank you, Hesper.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Good luck
thank you.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.